Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I do welcome the ministerial report that has been presented by the Chief Minister to the House, and welcome the opportunity to hear about the new government's work and also the intentions for the ongoing next couple of years. So thank you, Chief Minister. We do appreciate the opportunity to contribute on this report. I think it's really important that Territorians do see what government is doing for delivering for them across the territory, not just in the urban areas, of course. We know that the focus for the new government will be, and they've been very upfront, that it will be around the northern suburbs and where they held the majority of the government seats. But we want to make sure that the deliverables are all across the territory, Madam Speaker, and I do acknowledge that the Chief Minister spoke to some of those wider deliverables across the NT, but we want to make sure all Territorians are delivered for by the new CLP government. Madam Speaker, whilst the new CLP government has, of course, trashed the reputation of the former Labor government, they've also ignored some of the key deliverables that our former Labor government did achieve. They do want to dismiss and ignore any of the key milestones that were reached under the former government. So I do want to place on the record, when we're talking about delivering for Territorians, a lot of the work that has been laid to provide some good foundation in regards to particularly infrastructure and some of those key areas of deliverables that everyone expects their government to deliver on, that we were able to hold very strong in the area of things like infrastructure and delivering right across the territory. So we don't want the CLP to use the strength of their numbers in the majority, Madam Speaker, to simply erase the history for Territorians around what the Territory Labor government did do to move the territory forward. So I'm going to use the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to comment on those key deliverables that we did provide as a Labor government, and we want to make sure that this is placed on the record. We know that there is a change of government. We do not deny that here in the Territory. We do not dismiss that change, and we absolutely respect the voices of Territorians in deciding on that change, but we want to make sure that it is not dragged into the mud with what the CLP would seem to do, and that's to dismiss what was delivered for Territorians. So I know I won't have enough time to place on the record, Madam Speaker, all of the deliverables from our former Labor government, but I look forward to sharing some of the work that was delivered for Territorians, because that's what you have to do when you're in government. Madam Speaker, we're first going to the economy. Deloitte Access Economics forecast the Northern Territory economy to grow at an average rate of 2.7% per annum over the 5 years from 2027 to 28. And this is the strongest growth rate of all Australian jurisdictions. The state final demand grew by 2% in 2022-23, and over the past 3 years since December 2019, it's grown by 16.3%, Madam Speaker, the highest growth of any jurisdiction in the country. We developed strong economic visions for our regions, including the Barkly Regional Deal and regional economic growth plans for East Arnhem Land, Big Rivers and the Top End. Madam Speaker, our former Labor government took steps to shield Territorians from the full impacts of inflation here in the NT, to put downward pressure on the cost of living that was provided, and so we provided a range of subsidies, vouchers and concession schemes and grants, including the capped utility price on increases below inflation, saving Territorians hundreds of dollars in their pockets, Madam Speaker, when it comes to power costs. In 2023-24, our Territory Labor government provided $161.3 million in the community service obligation payments to reduce the price of power and the prices of utility across the territory. Our annual $200 back-to-school vouchers supported children and families with the cost of schooling, such as uniforms, stationery, excursion camps and elective activities. Early childhood services subsidies were paid, Madam Speaker, directly to childcare providers for long daycare, 3-year-old kindergarten and family daycare services to reduce the cost of living for parents, families and carers, Madam Speaker. The sports voucher scheme, you can receive 2 $100 vouchers each year, including the Learn to Swim vouchers, and my family's been a recipient of that. They're great vouchers, Madam Speaker, which assists all Territory families to to apply for, and to reduce the cost of living when it gets to involving kids in sport, recreation activities and also cultural activities. The subsidy of up to $1,500 for stamp duty on electric vehicles, effectively removing stamp duty for purchases up to $50,000 on a vehicle. And first-year apprentices able to access $1,000 of grants and support, Madam Speaker, for the workwear and gear bonus scheme. Madam Speaker, when we were in government, generous homeowner assistance for first homeowners and builders was an area of focus. The Home and Business Battery Scheme allowed homeowners and businesses to save up to $5,000 on the purchase of the installation of rooftop solar batteries and inverters to reduce electricity costs and indeed to reduce the footprint on the environment. Madam Speaker, our NT concession scheme assisted and eligible Territorians with the cost of living on a range of essential goods and services, providing free renewal of driving licences and saving up to $1,200 per annum on electricity for seniors, $800 per annum for water, $468 per annum for sewerage, $200 per annum for council rates, $150 per annum for garbage, $154 per annum for vehicle registration, and $502 every 2 years for spectacles for members and registered dependents. Madam Speaker, the NT Seniors Recognition Scheme recognises the valuable contribution of our senior Territorians to our communities to provide them also with the $500 prepaid card for Territory residents who are aged over 65 years old, which can be used for a variety of items. And we want to make sure, Madam Speaker, that through the work that the new CLP government is doing, that they do not forget about our seniors, and we urge them to continue these important cost of living measures and initiatives for our Territory seniors. Madam Speaker, when it comes to major projects for the Northern Territory, the CLP say that Labor did nothing in 8 years, which is outrageous. Our major projects included the next DC data centre, which is coming out of the ground right now here in the Darwin CBD. Denala Education and Community Precinct, which was opened just last month. The major works packages have been awarded to the Darwin Shiplift, including a contract for the Shiplift operating system. This project will go a long way to establishing Darwin as a thriving maritime services industry hub nationally and internationally. Defence, Madam Speaker, a critical part of the Territory's economy, and Northern Australia is front and centre in the Commonwealth's recently released National Data Strategy. We had a 10-year pipeline of defence investment here in the Northern Territory, Madam Speaker, billions of dollars worth of investment that will play a significant role in driving the Territory economy, not just here in Darwin, but in our regional centres as well, including my electorate of Arnhem, which covers Tyndall RAF base. Madam Speaker, our former Labor government committed $30 million over 3 years to support Middle Arm project development, as well as approvals to activate the Tennant Creek to Darwin infrastructure corridor, which will be set out to carry gas, oil, hydrogen energy, water, digital communications and electricity. Other key economic driving projects, Madam Speaker, included the wonderful Civic and State Square precinct, which we know is happening just outside of Parliament House, including the Northern Territory Art Gallery, which we can see in the skyline coming out of the ground right now currently. Also in the CBD, the exciting Larrakia Cultural Centre. In Alice Springs, the CBD Revitalisation Program. The pre-planning and art design work of the National Aboriginal Art Gallery project in Alice Springs is well in advance, but we know the CLP's put the brakes on that one, so we'll be watching that carefully. The Gove Port Tourism Precinct Development, the Gove Maritime Commercial Precinct, the Barkly Regional Deal projects including alternatives to detention facility for young people in the Barkly, new visitor park in Tennant Creek entry statements, student boarding accommodation and the justice infrastructure upgrades, Madam Speaker. When it comes to land release in the Territory, Madam Speaker, as the Labor government, we invested $186 million over 3 years to accelerate land release through headworks for subdivisions across the NT. Some of this funding included the areas of Greater Darwin, Katherine East, Tennant Creek and Kilgariff in Alice Springs. Since 2016, Madam Speaker, the former Labor government invested $11 billion in infrastructure, with some 99% of all of this money of the contracts going to Territory businesses, Madam Speaker. And since 2016, we've upgraded over 2,200 kilometres of Territory roads, key projects that were completed and underway. And I think it was the member for Drysdale who said that he goes around Darwin and Palmerston and sees nothing that was invested in. He's obviously going around with his eyes closed because he probably has driven on some of this 2,200 kilometre of upgraded roads across the Territory, and if he hasn't, then I suggest he goes and opens his eyes. $58 million, the Keep River Road project, including bridges over Keep River and Sandy Creek, sealing 150 kilometres of the Tanami Road in Central Australia, with the first $73 million stage well advanced, Madam Speaker. The Carpentaria Highway, which the member for Barkly will enjoy, 150 kilometres of project works. Stage 1 is nearing completion, with Stage 2, which will commence shortly, and I'm sure the member for Barkly will be there cutting the ribbon or kissing the bitumen or whatever with the member for Namatjira as the new minister. The Tiger Brennan Driver Overpass, I think the member for Drysdale must go an alternative way when he comes to Parliament, because I'm sure he drives on that road and he must see it every day if he's going to Parliament. So that overpass, a Labor government project, Madam Speaker, supporting 150 Territory jobs at the peak of construction. This is the busiest intersection in the Northern Territory, Madam Speaker, and it will now become the safest. The technology that the Territory company Sitzler has used is the first of its kind in the country, Madam Speaker. No other overpass in the whole of Australia has been built to the conditions to cover and to support road trains. Just think about that, Madam Speaker. The engineers and the Territory businesses have designed that project to carry road trains on that overpass. They try to look everywhere across Australia. It's never been done before. Tiger Brennan Overpass is the first of its kind in the country, Madam Speaker. Adelaide River floodplain upgrade, Paru Road upgrade on Melville Island, which I know the member for Arafura supported and was able to deliver for his constituents. The Kakadu Road upgrades, $80 million to continue sealing the Tanami Road. Outback Way upgrades, including the Plenty Highway and Turujuru Road. $112 million for upgrades on the Buntine Highway, $60 million for the Port Keats to Palumpa Road, $66 million for roads in Kakadu, the sealing of the Marini Loop, upgrades to the Santa Teresa Road, Stewart Highway, Schwartz Crescent intersection upgrade. Central Arnhem Road upgrades are coming too, which is great for me as the member for Arnhem, so I hope that that's not one of the so-called pet projects that the CLP is going to scrap of the $42 million of infrastructure roads, infrastructure projects. They haven't said what they're going to scrap. Let's hope it's not the Central Arnhem Road for the Arnhem constituents. And Madam Speaker, the list in infrastructure goes on, but of course, as I've said, I'm not going to be able to read out all of those deliverables. When it comes to community infrastructure projects, the Richardson Park upgrades turning into community facility for everyone to use, Madam Speaker, the new Northern Suburbs Youth and Community Hub, and we expect the CLP government will honour this project, and I do hope those Northern Suburbs CLP members keep a good eye on this. Make sure that your government does not scrap this project for your communities. Health infrastructure, Madam Speaker. The Royal Darwin Hospital upgrades to the forensic mortuary, mental health facilities and car park are among some of those key projects and deliverables. Stage 1 of the Darwin Regional Water Supply Program and the Gove District Hospital fire upgrades. Very important, Madam Speaker. And we keep continuing on to the regions. The Gumbalanya Health Clinic Centre and the morgue, the Gupwiak barge landing upgrade, Gulawinku aerodrome upgrades, Kintor Road upgrades, Madam Speaker, and we've just seen the new Jabiru Health Clinic open up just last month, Madam Speaker. Fantastic for that part of the Territory to have a new facility. When it comes to sporting facilities, Madam Speaker, well over $100 million on new sporting infrastructure right around the Northern Territory, including a new home for rugby league, new indoor netball facility in Darwin, new football oval, lighting upgrades in remote and regional communities. So something for everyone there, Madam Speaker. Remote communities secured a partnership with the Commonwealth around the $4 billion over 10 years for new houses in the Northern Territory. This will allow the construction of 270 new homes every year for the next 10 years in our remote communities, Madam Speaker, and we do fully support the CLP continuing that strong legacy. We know the member for Barkly will enjoy getting those selfies as the new minister, and we do welcome that because we know that's going to be delivering under a Labor legacy for Territorians in the bush. Madam Speaker, Labor built more than 1,278 new homes across the Northern Territory. So when you're saying that we didn't deliver, please go out to those remote communities, especially if you're from the urban and the northern suburbs area. Go and see what it makes Go and see what it does to make a difference for remote Territorians, for fellow Territorians in our remote communities to get a new home. We know the member for Barclay is good at getting photos. Please go out with him, get those selfies, those photos, meet those families and listen to their stories and understand what a new house can mean for a family, an individual and a group, especially someone living with a disability in a community. When they get that new house and it is purpose-built to support them living in their community rather than moving away from their community, you'll see the difference that being in government makes to people's lives in the Territory. And please don't forget about those remote Territorians, especially you, Deputy Chief Minister, do not forget about remote Territorians. Madam Speaker, we improved and upgraded more than 1,700 homes in our remote communities. And when we saw the construction in 2023, last year's dry season, 100 new homes in 100 days. This had never been done before, and we were very proud of that legacy. We would love the CLP government to continue that good work. Madam Speaker, when it comes to homelands, and I know the member for Mulka is a fierce advocate around homelands, as are we in the Labor opposition, we included an additional $40 million per annum of Northern Territory government funds for urgent repairs and maintenance to ensure that a comprehensive audit of infrastructure needs for our homelands was also reviewed and delivered on, and the allocation of the funds for homelands in partnership with advocacy for the federal government, $100 million for those urgent upgrade repairs in our homelands, making a difference to improving living conditions in our most remote parts of the Territory on our beautiful homelands. Madam Speaker, when it comes to Aboriginal affairs, we signed 13 local decision-making agreements to empower the voices and the action of decision-making for local services back in the hand of to Aboriginal communities. There were a further 26 proposed local decision-making agreements in development, and the CLP government has scrapped local decision-making as a portfolio. So we hope that the new Aboriginal Affairs Minister takes his responsibilities and the weight of his responsibilities to the utmost priority for Aboriginal Territorians in our remote communities to ensure that those 13 signed LDMs and the further 26 that are being worked on under his CLP government will be continued to deliver on, so we can really see the voices of remote Territorians making decisions for communities. The real decision-making, absolutely. So we would love the CLP to go and ensure they do their job as government, because we know the CLP scrapped treaty. Madam Speaker, CLP has scrapped treaty, something that the member for Mulka has talked about in this place already. They said, we do not believe in treaty, we will not support treaty. Treaty can go and get stuffed as far as you're concerned if you're in the Northern Territory. All the work and the decades and decades of advocacy from Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Territorians has been scrapped under the CLP government. So we truly and sincerely hope, Madam Speaker, that the CLP government will honour the voices, the decision-making of Aboriginal Territorians when it comes to local decision-making. You go out there, you sit in the dirt, you look, listen and learn, Minister. You look, listen and learn to those Aboriginal decision-makers in our communities, and you look them in the eye and you tell them whether you're going to support local decision-making. I would love to see that. You are very, very, very welcome in the Arnhem electorate to go and do that with the constituents that I represent, to tell them if you are going to support their voices, their decision-making when it comes to the communities that they represent, that they are working hard for, and that they're not just going to be flicked away with the written decision. And, Madam Speaker, I also extend that invitation to the Deputy Chief Minister, because I don't think he's ever been in, other than Mataranka, I don't think he's ever been in the Arnhem electorate, so I would love him in his new role to go and look and listen and learn about the jobs in the Arnhem electorate that are tied to the local decision-making agreements. And I really hope the CLP Cabinet all get thorough briefings from the member for Barclay, the new Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, about the impact of local decision making, the jobs that come with that, the decisions and the better services that come when they're delivered by community for community, Madam Speaker. When it comes to energy, Madam Speaker, the Darwin-Katherine electricity system plan to increase system stability, moving towards 50% renewable power by 2030. I really hope and sincerely wish the new government well to continue on that great journey. Thank you, Madam Speaker.